Welcome back to Your Hour. Jamie Whitfield joins us today. And this is a regular series. I hope people realize that. Jamie is a recovering addict and my assistant.
Yes.
And she's trying to reach out to people who might be in similar circumstances or people who might need to be guided in the right direction. And I think it's very unselfish of her to share her own story and talk to people about this in a very public venue. I think this is really commendable, and I hope people really understand what she's doing here. One of the things that I hear a lot about when it comes to recovering, and it doesn't matter whether it's alcohol, narcotics, um, anything. It's the 12 steps.
Yes.
Now, I'm not going to ask you to name the 12 steps, but I would like you to start with step one and tell us what that entails.
Okay. Step one just entails that we admit that we are powerless over drugs or alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable.
And I know you can speak louder than that.
Yes, I can. And, just admitting that you are powerless, and that means to surrender
Right.
to your addiction and basically say, okay, you win, but I'm going to win in the long run by admitting that you win and that you're powerful, and addiction is very powerful.
Oh, yes.
It's a disease of denial is what it is. And so in order for you to admit that powerlessness over the drug itself is very commendable as well, and that's your first step into
Well, in fact,
recovery.
that step is the step that basically leads someone to ask for help.
Yes, it does, to surrender. And usually, typically, if you, seek out, inpatient, treatment, that usually typically is the first step that you work on. I'll just speak for me when in my treatment experience, and that was the first step that we got up and we talked about being powerlessness, having that powerlessness over our drug and admitting that, one is too many and 1,000 would never be enough,
Yeah.
for us. And so when you can do that, but sometimes people, confuse the concept of powerlessness with helplessness. And we're not helpless. We're just powerless over that drug of our choice or that alcohol, and that we have to, admitting that having helplessness is the inability to change or heal, and that's not what we're doing. And so sometimes people do get that concept mixed up, and you just have to reclaim your power over your life, over everything. Your thinking, your life, the way you do everything, and just to know that you are powerless because you can't do we can't do anything, we can't do no more drugs. We are powerless over that fact, and like I said, one is too many and 1,000 will never be enough. And when we get that in our thick heads of ours, that is that first step.
Well, when you mentioned the idea that denial
Yes.
is part of the issue, and that's very true. I know of people who are in the throes of an addiction, and yet they insist that they can live a normal life or that they can function in day-to-day life, and they really can't.
No, and there again, that's just part of our addiction. It will have you convinced that you are not an addict.
Yeah.
And that it is not a disease, and it is a disease of denial. Because I used to do the same. Oh, I have this. I'm not an addict, because I can do this, this, and this and still function. But really, this, and this that I was doing, I wasn't really doing anything.
Yeah.
I thought I was. And I would start tasks and never finish them. Or, I'd make appointments for myself or my children and never go. That's not managing your life. Yeah, I couldn't stay employed. I really didn't even have a desire to be employed, because I didn't know how I was going to manage getting high and managing that employment at the same time.
Right. Yeah, because at least even in your addiction, you were smart enough to know that that addiction is going to take hold.
Yes.
And it's going to preclude everything else.
Yes. You don't have a life. And I've said this before on when we've talked before, it's just not living. It isn't. Like I just feel so silly sometimes thinking that that was the good life at one point in
Yeah.
time, and it's not. It's just not living. Recovery is beautiful. Since I have been delivered from my addiction and the desire has subsided of even thinking and the thoughts and wanting, the cravings, they're not here like they were, when I was even, 30 days clean. Each day gets better. And with the NA fellowship and the tools and the things that the steps, solutions to every problem. And it is true. If you apply these steps to your life, in your process of staying, in deliverance from your disease, it really is a wonderful thing because everything that these steps imply, it is just about everything, everyday things that go on in your life that before we couldn't handle them without the use of drugs.
Well, and the relationships suffer.
Yes.
Probably first and foremost,
Yes, they do.
relationships suffer because people get a little tired of you letting them down.
Oh, yeah.
And they, they kind of disconnect from you.
Yes, they do. And we've heard that as well from my sister last week, just a year went by. I didn't even know it was that long,
Wow.
because time just one day turns into the next, and before you know it, you don't have no concept of time, because your life just revolves around using and getting more, and finding more ways to use, I mean, even eating isn't a priority,
Right.
Self-care is not a priority when you're out there. It really just takes a hold and a toll on your life and everything in it.
Yeah. And I know that once you have made the decision to get clean, it's not an easy transition to make.
No, it's not easy, and it's a lot of footwork, to and when I say footwork, I don't mean that literally. I just mean that spiritually. You have to rediscover who you are as who you always wanted to be or could be, and know yourself to be that person that's inside that you've, basically let the imposter take over your life, and then you don't even know who you are anymore until you just start rediscovering yourself when you have that clear frame of mind.
Yeah, when the cloud
Has
starts to
lifted.
lift. Well, Jamie, I'm so proud of you for what you're doing, and I wish you the best, and I think next week we're going to actually be having some other members of your family here to
Yes,
talk
indeed.
about this, and I think it's going to be very powerful.
Yes.
So, thanks for joining us today.
And I thank you for everything you've done for me as well. Thank you.
My pleasure. And we'll be back with more Your Hour.
I know she's always in your heart, Colonel, and never leaves. I also want to recognize Master Sergeant Merle Simpson, who fought beside Colonel in Korea. Where are you? Stand up, sir. Come on.
Okay,
Okay.
this is the mic you're actually getting.
Pardon me?
This is the mic you're actually talking to on the
Okay.
air. So,
Is there a reason for that?
we got my other mic stand and everything in there.
Oh, duh. Okay, got it.
Who made the trip to Washington today to represent all of their fallen brothers from the 8th Army Ranger Company. It's an honor. It's an honor
Hi,
for
Jeff.
all members as well. Hill 205 was just 60 miles from the border with China.
Let's get with you and talk to you.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. That works out well.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It's
So did you get my text about what did I text you after you texted me? I
something
said
about the
the term public servant has lost all meaning.
yeah. That's I
Yeah.
I assume that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and it
Okay.
kind of goes hand in hand with taxation without representation. You know, I mean, if they're not representing me, then